CKLA, 5th grade, Domain 2, Reader, Chapter 2. Golden Age of the Maya. Our big question is, how did Maya society adapt and thrive in such a large and diverse region? Desiré Charnay was a French archaeologist who visited the jungles of Central America in the 1800s. He wrote the words below in his journal. The rain is incessant. The damp seems to penetrate the very marrow of our bones. The vegetable mold settles on our hats, which we are obliged to brush off daily. We live in mud. We are covered in mud. We breathe in mud. The ground is so slippery that we are often on our backs and our feet, as often on our backs as on our feet. Imagine slipping and sliding through the mud all day long. Imagine constantly swatting at mosquitoes. Imagine pit vipers and tarantulas resting in trees overhead. Imagine constant heat and humidity. Mud, poisonous creatures, and muggy weather were all part of Charnay's experience in the rainforest. Charnay visited Central America after reading a travel book written by John Lloyd Stephens and illustrated by Frederick Catherwood. He was fascinated by the book's illustrations of ancient Maya ruins. Catherwood drew pictures of vine-choked temples poking through clouds. His drawings of carved masks looked like real people. Stephens and Catherwood portrayed abandoned cities, swallowed up by dense forests. Their book captured the imaginations of people from all around the world. Who were these Maya? People wondered. A culture flourishes. The Maya were one of many groups of people who settled in Mesoamerica. They formed agricultural villages, at least as early as 1800 BC, BCE, BC, same thing. Over time, they established a civilization. As many as 5 million people inhabited an area that stretched from the highlands of Guatemala to the plains of Yucatan between 250 and 900 AD, or CE, same thing. Writing, religion, and art flourished. In certain respects, this area was the golden age for the Maya culture. The Maya were not ruled by a single ruler. The Maya lived in city-states, scattered across considerable distances. Some of these city-states were larger than others. Each had a powerful lord who governed his own city and surrounding areas. The city-states both traded and fought with one another. Maya society was divided into classes, with lords in the highest class. Well-educated priests were also among the nobles or highest classes. Both kings and priests lived in palaces close to the city centers. Powerful nobles usually lived in the largest houses. Craftsmen lived in smaller homes that were often farther away from the city center. Farmers lived next to their fields and were even farther away. Temples and pyramids dominated the center of the Maya city-states. Rituals and religious rituals, festivals, and ceremonies took place in the pyramids temple complex. Pyramids, temples, gods, and sacrifice. Maya city-states were centers of both government and religion. Each center had some unique architectural designs. However, all centers had stone pyramids and temples. Some of the pyramids served as burial monuments to honor dead kings. Temples occupied the top level of the pyramids, purposefully close to the heavens and the gods. These temples were reserved for rulers and priests. Pyramid temple complexes often surrounded a central plaza where public ceremonies and festivals took place. Religion was important to most aspects of Maya life. The Maya belief in gods and goddesses helped them explain the mystery of life itself. They believed that gods controlled everything. The gods were responsible for the rising and setting of the sun and the phases of the moon. They were certainly responsible for floods and droughts, as well as sickness and health. The Maya gave thanks for a bountiful harvest, a cured disease, or a victory in battle. They offered sacrifices or precious gifts to the gods. Sacrificial blood both of animals and humans, was a common offering. Kings, sometimes called holy lords, were in charge of hosting sacrificial rituals and ceremonies. Toward the end of the Maya Golden Age, the city-state Chichen Itza served as an important Maya center. Chichen Itza is located in the arid region of the northern Yucatan Peninsula. The Maya believed that Chichen Itza's well of sacrifice was the home of the gods who controlled the rain. The Maya offered sacrifices to the rain gods. They did so because they believed the fields would be watered. This well continued to serve as a sacrificial site for centuries after the Chichen Itza's decline as a major Maya center. Trading from highlands to lowlands. Trade routes followed rivers, seas, and roads across the Maya regions, connecting these indigenous people to one another. Cities were hubs of commerce, where people shared ideas and traded goods. The Maya used a barter system for exchanging daily necessities. People in the lowlands traded food, cotton, and jaguar skins for coastal salt and dried fish. People across Mesoamerica used obsidian and volcanic glass from the highlands for both jewelry and tools. Wealthy Maya valued precious gemstones and brightly colored feathers of the rainforest quetzal bird. Feeding city-states, wetlands, mountains, and rainforests. Maya farmers worked hard to supply food to the city-states. Rainfall and soil quality varied throughout Mesoamerica. The Maya found clever ways to meet the challenges of their diverse landscapes. Some lowland areas received heavy rains from May through December, followed by drought from January through April. Because of this inconsistent rainfall, the Maya developed ways of redirecting and reusing rainwater. They created canals in the lowlands. They built raised earth platforms above the canals and created wetlands. Aquatic plants helped keep the water clean and provided shade for the fish in the canals. The fish, in turn, provided food and fertilizer for the fields. In highland areas, Maya cut terraces into the slopes of mountains. They practiced multi-cropping in this flat land and planting and harvesting the land multiple times throughout the year. Their crops included beans, tomatoes, squash, chili peppers, pumpkins, maize, or corn was the main food throughout Mesoamerica. In forested areas, the Maya used a technique known as slash and burn. They slashed down trees and then burned the area. Then they planted new crops. Ashes left from the fire added nutrients to the soil. After several years, the crops used up the nutrients in the soil. The Maya then repeated the process in another area. The Maya also gathered tree crops. Fruit trees thrived in the rainforest. The Maya enjoyed the bountiful fruit of the breadnut tree. Similar to apricots in appearance, breadnut fruit has highly nutritious seeds. The Maya ate these seeds or ground them into flour. The Maya also used rainforest plants for medicine. Some Maya hunted game in the forests, including deer, rabbits, and other small mammals. They raised turkeys and dogs for food. They raised stingless bees for honey, which they used to sweeten food and drinks. In coastal communities, the Maya ate fish and turtles as well. It is important to remember the Maya were not the first civilization to live in Mesoamerica. The way they lived was often very similar to the way others in the area lived. The Maya did not invent the pyramid, nor were they the first to practice writing. Instead, Maya often improved upon practices originally borrowed from other cultures. Here's a fun game. This is an important ball game they used to play. The Maya played a ball game called Pukatak that had religious significance. You can find this on YouTube somewhere, actually. Nearly every Maya city had at least one ball court, enclosed by parallel walls. The rectangular courts varied in size. Some were nearly as large as a modern-day football field. The game of Pukatak was played with a solid rubber ball that weighed as much as 8 pounds. Players kept the ball in the air with their knees, hips, shoulders, and forearms. Thick, heavy padding protected them in the fast-paced game. Rules varied among city-states. At Chichen Itza's court, the object was to pass the ball through the stone hoops. In some city-states, players were sacrificed to the gods at the end of the game. Thanks. It's possible the game symbolized the passage of the sun across the sky. This is believed to be an important daily task performed by the gods. There's a painted mural at Bonaparte, Life in the Royal Court. This mural was painted on a temple wall at Bonaparte in southern Mexico. It shows that members of the king's royal court lived lives of luxury. Rulers grew wealthy from trade amongst city-states. The mural depicts how members of the royal court lived and dressed. Loose fitting clothing was typical of all social classes. Noble women wore beads, pendants, and earrings made of precious jade. Noble men covered their heads with feathered headdresses made of crystal plumes. Only the rich and powerful wore fancy clothes and jewels. That is it for this chapter. Thank you for joining me. This is Mr. Bowlby. Have a good day.